Good evening, and we would like to call this Brunswick City Commission meeting Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 to order. We will have an invocation by Mayor Pro Tem Harrison. Before we go to the Pledge of Allegiance, we will have a 10-second moment of silence for those that we lost in the massacre in Buffalo, and then we will move on to our Pledge of Allegiance and on through the agenda. May we all stand.
Yahweh, we thank you now for this opportunity to come to you. Thank you now for everything that you've done and everything that you're doing in each and every person. We thank you now for the city of Brunswick. Thank you now for the minds and the persons that you have called to cover the thoughts and the movement and going forward of the city. We pray now, God, for each and every person that for whatever reason it is, for whatever it is that they feel, we pray now, God, that you will allow releasing to take place on tonight. We pray now, God, for your advanced forgiveness. We pray now, God, that if there's anything that we've done not pleasing to you, that God, you will govern our process, you will govern our thoughts, you will govern our hearts and our spirits. Father God, we pray now for the unity of the city. We pray now, God, that our actions going forward will be one, that will be one together, that we will be going forward in unity, Father God, that those things that are behind us, God, we will allow them to guide us in our thoughts, Lord, to be the compassion that we show for our brothers and our sisters. God, that you will just lead us and guide us in everything. We pray now for the governance of the city. We pray now for the protection, Father God. We pray, my God, that you will just lead us and guide us as only you can. And as we go forward in this meeting, God, let it be under your guidance. Let it be for the betterment of the city of Brunswick, for us to build a better Brunswick. And not just for one person, not just for a special interest group, but God, let it be for the unity of all of the citizens of the city of Brunswick, as well as the county of Cleveland. So God, as we go through this process on tonight, this meeting, God, we will rely on you as you will guide us in your wisdom. In your most holy and precious name we pray. Amen. Amen.
We will now have a 10-second moment of silence. Thank you. Now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we start on the agenda, I would like to say that we will be adding a point of personal privilege for Commissioner Kaysen after our Brunswick Historic Preservation Chairman Charles Day recognizes his awards. So right after that, we will have a point of personal privilege by Commissioner Kaysen. With that, I will move on to the approval of the agenda as it stands.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those agree show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, the agenda is adopted. We will now move on to a proclamation for our members of the Coast Guard. And can we please call to the front Flotilla Commander Ted Dubose and Public Affairs Officer Mr. Wayne Lancaster. We want to first off thank you for your service and everything that you've done for our community, your steadfastness for all of our citizens. So we thank you for that, truly. Whereas National Safe Boating Week brings attention to important life-saving tips for recreational boaters so that they can have a safer, more fun experience on the water throughout the year. And whereas for over 100 million Americans, boating continues to be a popular recreational activity, and the U.S. Coast Guard and its federal, state, and local safe partners encourage all boaters to explore and enjoy America's beautiful waters responsibly. And whereas on average, 650 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the U.S., 75% of these fatalities caused by drowning. whereas a significant number of voters who lose their lives by drowning each year would be alive today had they worn life jackets. And whereas safe boating begins with education, preparation, as human error accounts for most boating accidents rather than the boating or boating equipment or environmental factors. And whereas through basic boating safety procedures, we can help boaters on America's waters stay safe year-round. Now, therefore, I, Cosby H. Johnson, as mayor of the city of Brunswick, along with my fellow commissioners, do hereby recognize May 21st through the 27th, 2022, as a National Safe Boating Week in the city of Brunswick, Georgia, and urge all those who boat to practice safe boating habits and always wear a life jacket while boating. Thank you so much. So much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now have the Brunswick Historic Preservation Chairman, Charles Day, to recognize Historic Preservation Award winners. Mr. Day.
Established in 1973 by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, May is recognized as Historic Preservation Month. Recognizing this, the City of Brunswick Historic Preservation Board and the Historic Brunswick Foundation have come together to recognize the great work that has been done preserving, rehabilitating, and adapting the historic fabric of our city by residents and businesses. The Brunswick Historic Preservation Board nominated projects completed within the last 3 years, and an online poll was created with residential and commercial categories. Winners in the online poll will receive People's Choice Awards. Members of the Historic Preservation Board also selected projects to receive awards for excellence in preservation to recognize worthy projects that has exemplified the positive impact of preservation in our community. As I read through the categories, I would ask that as your project is mentioned, you would stand for recognition. And then following this portion, we would like to meet downstairs in front of the historic steps to take some photographs. In the residential category, the winners for the People Choice Awards are 602 Dartmouth, Rosemary Christensen. (910) Union, The Cookhouse, Scott and Wendy Lutz. (8) Halifax Square, The Sweetheart House with Stephen Murray. Excellence in Preservation Awards go to 1306 George Street, Damon and Stacy Whitlow. (703 Union Street, Joe and Janice McKelvey. (815 Union Street, Josh and Heather Wills. Honorable mention is 519 Norwich Street, Brampton LLC. In the commercial category, People's Choice Awards go to Silver Bluff Brewery. Reed's Apothecary. (1608 Newcastle Street, the Liberty Building with the Princes. Excellence in Preservation Awards go to 1210 Newcastle Street, Wiregrass Studio, Nathan and Leanne Brock. Queen Square Northeast with Signature Squares. (1311 Newcastle Street, The Bijou and Port City Park, Port City Partners. An honorable mention is 211 Mansfield Street, Jimmy's Garage with Robin Durant. We would like to thank the commission for having us present these awards this evening in front of a city crowd, and are just appreciative of the citizens' participations in historic renovations, and hope to see more in the future as we continue to grow and flourish. Thank you.
Want to take a moment and just really say thank you to each and every one of the winners and those who are also in the categories. We understand that it is truly the investment, not only of your money, but in your time and your passion into our community that really helps thicken the fabric. So we thank you for that. So moving on. Wonderful. We will now move on to a point of personal privilege by Commissioner Casey.
That's our whole audience.
We'll be back.
Okay. Well, some of them may. but-
We now move on to a point of personal privilege by Commissioner Casey.
I wish we followed the committee's recommendation to leave tax and employees. Every time I suggested possibly hire and company history balance. Since the statute has been removed, I strongly feel follow at least part of the recommendation by any scientist that breathe faith and honor the men and women who came before us in history. Something like this. Breathe space dedicated to the memory of the men and women who came before us. Very different. Yeah. This is the committee's will. I see the signage being placed in an area with the statue of bounty placed. Should that landscape include flowers? That part of this whole thing. Represent both sides. I hate to say it that way. I think it's so. I do know that kind of thing.
know the commissioner has great passion for which he speaks. Moving forward, consider approval of alcohol and beverage license for Sunoco Food Mart and Officer Baloo.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. Yes, tonight I have a new ownership of Sunoco Food Mart number 1. It's located at 4525 Altama Avenue. And the owner is Niraj Patel. He is here tonight. A complete review has been completed on him and nothing negative was found. And this license is for a retail sale of beer and wine.
Is the owner with us tonight?
Yes, sir, he is.
Okay, wonderful. If you could please come to the front, just in case there are any questions. Thank you for being here with us.
Sir.
With that, I will open it up. I know usually the first question we have is if it's in the vicinity of anything and it's clear, and this business had already had a license, it's just transferring ownership.
Yes, sir.
So
Perfect.
this is not near the college where, okay,
No,
thank you.
It's on down.
It's on far,
Yes.
thank you.
It's at the corner of
I didn't get a chance to.
of
walk by,
Altama
so-
and Community.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
Right across the street from, Rite Aid or
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, on that corner, okay.
What other, locations?
3879 Altama Avenue is by the college, Sunoco Food Mart 2. Right by the college, number
The
2.
one that you were asking about.
Yeah.
He owns it.
Are there any other locations?
No,
So there's, the previous owner did have
Mhm.
retail sales.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions?
nope.
Hearing none,
I just have a question. I see on the agenda that it does say 4525 Altama Avenue as the
Is that a typo?
business address, which is the one.
No, it's wrong address.
If I'm-
28.
It's 4528.
The correct address is 3528.
4528.
4528.
Altama? Okay,
Are we?
Yes,
right.
it's,
I know,
yes,
I
it's
know.
listed here. It was a typo on my behalf. I
Okay.
apologize.
So Brian,
because that
are
is
you
across
good?
the street. Right.
That's a pretty significant typo.
Yeah. Yes,
Are
I
we good?
remembered that one from the lawsuit,
Yeah.
so I was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, thank you.
Yes, I
Okay.
meant to put the 8 there instead of a 5.
That's pure coincidence, I suppose, but all right, that's all I had. Thank you,
Perfect.
Mayor.
and Naomi, that would be. I don't think so. We're good.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Naomi, that'll be reflected in the notes, the actual. So we're doing 4528. 28.
It'll be listed on his
Okay.
license as well.
Do we? Mhm. And that's still the name of the business.
Yes,
Sunoco Food Mart,
1.
number 1.
Yes.
Yep. Do we have any public comment? Anyone to speak for or against? Hearing none, we'll now open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the retail sale of beer and wine at the Sunoco Food Mart number 1, correct property address being 4528 Altama Avenue.
Mhm.
No, no,
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Mhm.
I just didn't make it sound like I was done. Sorry.
That's okay.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Thank you. You have a good evening.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to appointments, and we will turn it over to Ms. Atkinson.
I make a motion to reappoint William Kitts.
Here in a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to the consent agenda item, which is consider approval of May 4th, 2022 regular scheduled minutes. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Here in a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to items to consider for approval. Consider preliminary approval of fiscal year 2022, 2023 proposed budget. City Manager McDuffie.
Good evening. Thank you all for the opportunity to again present the proposed budget for the 2023 fiscal year for the city of Brunswick. The budget was presented at the last meeting. The budget will be proposed at $18,607,580, which is a 7.15% increase over the approved budget for the fiscal year 2022. The budget includes $11.8 million of personnel costs. Of that, about $9 million is salaries, which is 76% of that cost. The revenues for the city are proposed at the 18.6 million, and it includes sales tax and property tax, which accounts for about 80% of the city's revenue. The budget also includes, on the expenditure side, 3 full-time positions are proposed in the proposed budget for consideration, along with a 3% COLA that is scheduled to be awarded mid-year, and also an increase for general employees at the beginning of the fiscal year. The budget contains funding to maintain our current health insurance, as well as support some initiatives on housing, particularly to fund more demolitions to fight the blight in our community. The budget also has technology upgrades, building upgrades, and funding for our Christmas lighting program. Also included is $680,000 of equipment upgrades and replacement of vehicles. The budget does not propose to use any of the city's fund balance, but we are proposing to use $500,000 for revenue recovery from our ARPA funds. The budget schedule is going to be published. Well, the budget is going to be published in the paper next Wednesday, and the public hearing, which will also be published, is scheduled for June 1st at 5 p.m. Those are the highlights for the budget, and I would ask for consideration of approval of the proposed budget at this time so that we can publish it in the paper as required by state law.
I will give a small, brief time for us to look through some of the stuff that's in front of us before we ask any questions. But if there's any questions immediately, the floor is open.
I have a housekeeping question, and that is, in looking at the budget schedule of the, different times that the budget's going to be presented and the dates, which one of those meetings is a full commission meeting? Just so we can
The
get it on our
schedule
calendar.
is set so that if the commission wants to set meetings for additional review of the budget, the only ones that are required is the public hearing on June 1st and the final approval of the budget at the time that we are ready for approval. The other dates for budget reviews are not, they're just optional. And if the commission would like for those to be scheduled, we would have to advertise or publish those dates just a day ahead of time, as usual, to set a meeting.
Okay.
I've got a question on the police department capital. The cameras there, does that provide everybody now with a camera?
I think there are certain ranks that don't have cameras, and the chief is here, so he can answer that specifically. But what we are trying to do is to ensure that all of the patrol officers and officers on the street do have functioning, upgraded body cams.
Or who are we using now as the manufacturer? Are we using Axon or who?
No, sir, it's the same company that supplies our car video cameras, the ones that we've been with for the past 15 plus years. But it's not Axon. But the cameras now, sir, it doesn't provide every officer a camera. Like I usually chase papers around the desk, so I don't have a camera. The major doesn't. But it does provide new updated cameras. The ones we have now is the same company, but they are outdated models. They're breaking, and we're not able to. The company's not able to repair. We have 20 in the service right now. So these are the new latest edition of the cameras, body cameras that we already have. And it's upgraded.
So if we've got feet on the street, they've got a camera.
Not always, sir. It provides enough for our patrol officers and our detectives, but like I've been working patrol, I don't have a camera. But the majority of the ones that answer the calls on a day-to-day basis, yes, we do have body cameras.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Yes.
Appreciate it. You know, I also see there's a piece of Caterpillar equipment for the cemeteries. Something that I suggest doing is, are we going to leave the piece of equipment out at the cemetery, or will it go back to Public Works? Does it go back and forth? I'm going to say, if we're going to leave it at the cemetery, the way that old one was left out there, I would highly recommend some kind of cover to take a little bit better care of what we have done with the old piece of equipment.
It'll move back to our car.
Okay, good. I just noticed that, and it's something that I tried to get done a long time ago. Was I know if that was my piece of equipment out there, it would be covered up. I can assure you. And another problem you have with when we were leaving it out there is that we were losing some fuel out there too. So it's a good thing to either have it sheltered or to move it back and forth. That's it for me right now. Thank you.
My questions are coming under neighborhood and community services regarding recreation and the approaching of recreation allotment. Any allotted amount is what's going on with that area? What page?
There is, in terms of us taking over recreation. I beg your pardon?
I was trying to listen.
There's basically, we've budgeted for what is recreation right now. Of course, you know, we are going into negotiations, which will be bringing in hopefully additional funding to support that area.
So what, I know you said for right now, so right now, in a whole bunch. So is there any allowance, or are you going to have any consideration for the actual improving of the building of that area?
We don't.
Any amounts that have been increased to allow for that?
We don't have any in the operating budget right now. What I was planning to propose is probably use, if we were going to do something prior to the revenue being available is to use the proposed use of our reserves.
So does that would not come or fall under any of the ARPA provisions?
I will have to check to see if it is applicable. If so, then we may be able to use those funds.
Okay, okay. Because I was looking and I was thinking that it should, but I still have to do some more reading and stuff.
And I can check that prior to us finalizing the budget.
Okay, yeah, because I want to see some improvements to that building. Some real improvements to that building.
You're talking about the H Street?
Yes. I don't want us to have to wait on a decision to be made regarding SPOS or anything else. I want to see some real improvements. We've seen some, but they've not been what they should be. My next question is in the area of planning and development. And I saw that planning and development was decreased by almost about $50,000 or so, almost 50,000. What's
We
that?
put in last year, we put in funding because we thought we were going to be working to have a consultant come in for broadband, and that did not transpire, and we don't have any plan right now for that. So we took that funding out, and that was $50,000.
Okay, I was wondering, because I wanted to, that area, the planning and development and the ED, economic development, are areas that I thought we should kind of hone in on, and really look at how we're going to move forward. We know we've got a lot of development that's coming in through DDA, but with the planning and development and the economic development, how are we tackling those as a combined unit, and how are we supporting the courting, or I can't think of another word, the recruiting efforts in those areas, that they go hand in hand. And so how are we undergirding the efforts of planning and development as well as the economic development? And when I say that because John is the cohesiveness in some of the efforts that we're doing as it pertains to the land bank and those efforts. And so when we're looking at that, the beefing up of code enforcement and other necessary or needed personnel to help to build those offices or departments up to a standard that they can really go out and really do the necessary recruiting, and then not just the recruiting, but the follow-up and all of that stuff that's necessary to make sure that we are on the cutting edge in bringing in those mom and pops corporations, whomever it may be, but bringing in those parties so that we can beef up our efforts in the economic development area as well as planning and development.
Well, we did add a person last year, of course, for the economic development. I think he's only been on board for about 4 months. And of course, now we have more turnover in that area, but we will work to ensure that we bring in additional personnel to support
And
that.
that code enforcement, I hear so much about code enforcement.
Well, we are, I'm happy to say that the planning office is, they aren't fully staffed, but they have 3 code enforcement, which I think that has been for the last 2 months. We finally got that 3rd person. And so we are, working to make sure we have the proper people in that area. We had a change, and I think I communicated that. We do have the building inspector that left, and then we put someone in. We have someone for the building inspector, but that opens up our planner position. So we will be looking to fill that.
And with the economic development, where are we, with the economic development and the necessary personnel for that department?
Well, again, we just filled the economic development manager, but now the director's position is vacated, so we'll be proposing an interim ECD director and then looking at what we need to do to have that manager's position as well.
You mean the director's position?
The directors, yes.
Yeah.
So would there be a consideration for additional personnel in that department?
At this time, I'd just like to have the two positions filled. You know, we were, I guess when I started here, there was one, and we haven't really seen the efficiency of the two positions because we only had the second one filled for the last 4 months, and now we have another vacancy. So I think getting the two positions filled would be helpful to know, you know, what additional personnel we may need in that area.
I just want to make sure that, that we're allotting the resources for the anticipated or expected or projected growth that we see for the city of Brunswick, and that we want to see, that we visualize or envision for the growth, and that we are prepared for that growth with personnel to be able to follow through and do those things that are necessary to expand that growth or continue that growth.
Well, we need to have, I guess, a better conversation on it to see what you are envisioning and what we can do to better guide that department, because I think it has had some, I guess, since I've been here, it's been working more. You know, we've had several housing initiatives. We've been working with CDBG-DR. We have had move forward with our opportunity zones and with establishing the TAD districts. So we've been doing a lot of foundation work over the last 1.5 years, but we do need to kind of find better direction in terms of how it can go out and spur and kind of, I guess, initiate more development.
I was just noticing that human resources just has one person, is that right?
No, there are two full-time
two.
positions in HR.
Overlook one, okay, so they're gonna stay like they are?
At this point, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your work that you put in. I know the departments and everyone have been meeting to get us to the point that we are now. I definitely agree with most of the questions that have been asked for us to dig into. A couple of questions that I had looking inside of it was, I know we put some things in place for police and fire, and the $150 stipend, as well as the bonuses. And while I know that the stipends are rollover and probably captured inside of the budget, what I don't want is for those bonuses to be kind of one-time bonuses if we still have openings that we need to fill. And so I know we have some people kind of coming out of the academy who may be actualizing some of those bonuses. And so is that captured inside of this budget, or is that?
Are you referring to the sign-in bonuses?
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
have funding in there for the stipend and for the bonuses on a basis of what we thought, you know, the projected, I guess, number. of
How many people you
Right.
got? Gotcha. Perfect. The other question, I had, and this is it's something I want to discuss a little more in depth, is I figure right now in certain positions, we have to get to a place of paying competitively to get the personnel that we're looking for. And if we have a department like economic development, if we want to attract the best and the brightest, are we thinking about combining those positions to get to a salary point where we're attracting that real star who could be brought in? because I think for me, in terms of, I mean, the same questions we're asking as it pertains to police and fire, you know, in the areas of bringing in someone in economic development, the areas of bringing in additional people to our IT department. I just think I'm trying to figure out if we're in the correct salary range to be attracting people, the kind of talent that we need.
I appreciate that, Mayor, because yes, that is a concern. As a matter of fact, that was a concern, especially with economic development. In looking at someone who has certain level of experience, the salary that we're posting right now is probably may not be sufficient. So we will look at that, but we have the ability to, you know, make some changes in those areas.
My last question was surrounding something I think that all of us have seen some great turnover in, but additional resources to the IT department. I know we kind of have some turnover in that area. Is there something that we're considering in this budget about attracting them better with the salary or having a better connection with the college where we're starting them out at a certain kind of salary that keeps them home?
Well, we've done pretty well with IT. The person that left moved across the country, and I don't think it was a matter of the salary in that area. And I think at this point, we can look at that. And I certainly appreciate you all, you know, with forward thinking in terms of personnel and of salaries, because those are concerns that we will continue to review as we go out and look for people to come in. But I think in IT, I will be proposing some additional resources before the budget is finalized.
Thank you. That's all of my questions.
The tax digest percentage increase, what is that? That's what it's been?
What's the tax digest?
The digest increase.
The increase.
There's a projection, but I would have to look it up. I think it was, well, I can't say for this year. I know last year it was 4.3%, but I would have to look it up to see what that projected. It's not the actual, but the projected digest. Now I'll look that up and see.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Roll, I know you are attending virtually. I want to make sure that you are good as well.
I don't have any questions.
Perfect. Hearing no more question or comment, we'll open it up for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary fiscal year 2022-2023 proposed budget.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to consider approval of contract for East Coast Asphalt for asphalt resurfacing of various streets within the city. Director Albers.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This item, as you said, is for a consideration of a contract with East Coast Asphalt for roadway resurfacing around town. We have 107 miles of paved roads within the city. And last year in the spring, we completed an assessment of those roadways. Each mile of roadway or each block of roadway was assessed, given a grade, anywhere from good or excellent down to critical or lost. Good thing is most of our roadways were found to be fair or better. So, but about 25%, I'm sorry, about 15% were in the critical or lost category. So once we got that back, Ms. McDuffie came to me and asked us to put a package together to use some ARPA funding to start to repair some of these roadways. So we took that assessment list and basically started at the bottom at those worst ones and try to attack those first. And you can see the scope of work or the roadways that are to be included in this project. That list is included in this packet. So we put that list together, put the project out to bid, advertise it, and all as we do. We got 3 bids back on this from East Coast Asphalt, Georgia Asphalt Producers, and Seaboard Construction, with East Coast being the low bidder at just over $1.2 million. I did go back and take a look, kind of looked into that bid a little bit, and took a look at the asphalt prices within that bid, and compared it to some recent projects that we had asphalt prices in. The current project includes a bid price of $121.50 per ton of asphalt. We went back to a resurfacing project we did in 2018, which was carried a unit price of $105. The L Street in 19 was $101.52. And then the 2 Magnolia Park phases were just right at $105 and then $115 in the second phase. So the asphalt is increasing a little bit, as you'd expect. All building materials are, but I don't think this is an outrageous increase in this bid. Some of the others, a couple of the other bids were much higher. I think the Georgia Asphalt Producers bid was about $140 per ton of asphalt, and Seaboard was just over $200 a ton, I believe. But so we do feel like, with all that in mind, we feel like the bid from East Coast Asphalt is a reasonable bid, reasonably priced for the work that we've asked them to look at. So we have talked to them. Assuming this is approved tonight, it would take a few weeks to get contracts signed, bid or bond executed, that kind of thing. And they have mentioned that they could possibly be ready to start the work 3 to 4 weeks following that. So that puts us around hopefully a mid to late June of getting started. We've given them, I believe, 45 days in the contract to complete this work. So once they get in here, it shouldn't take long to get this moving, get it knocked out. And as I mentioned, this is to be funded by ARPA funds. So we're just asking for approval of the contract with East Coast Asphalt in the amount of $1,200,538.88 for resurfacing of various streets in the city.
Thank you, Director Albertson. With that, we will open it up for questions from the commission.
Well, do y'all anticipate anything hidden that might create problems, delays, et cetera? I know that's probably a difficult thing to answer, but these being maybe lesser traveled roads, or I don't know, but.
We don't anticipate any unknowns in this. Most of this will be resurfacing, going right over the top of what's already
Okay.
there. No excavation, not likely to run into any unknown utility lines or anything like that. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yep, exactly.
There are a couple of streets that would get some milling before we pave, just to kind of reduce that elevation against the curbs or whatever, so we don't pave up too high on the curb. But even though that wouldn't be milling through the existing layer of asphalt.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Carol, I've had some folks ask about Grant Street, and
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
can you help us with that? You and
I can tell you our
Virginia.
thoughts on Grant Street. Yes, sir. There are 3 blocks of Grant Street included in this, from Mansfield to Monk to Gloucester and to F Street. The 2 southern blocks have already been milled in a previous paving project. The northern block has not yet. In that previous milling, we found the bricks underneath the street. Looked into some ways to salvage the bricks, specialty contractors coming in, that kind of thing, to bring those, recondition those bricks and bring them back to, I guess, a salvaged condition. We've not found what we feel is a reliable method nor a cost-effective method yet to do that. The roadways are in pretty bad shape, especially the southern block of Grant Street out here behind the brewery. It's in pretty bad shape. So our thoughts are that we need to get a surface on this and improve that surface. This would not prevent going back in the future and trying to reclaim those bricks if we find a reliable or a method that is cost effective, or if we come into money that we want to use for that. They'll still be there. We can do that at that time. So that our thought was to let's put a surface on this that citizens, business owners can use, and then, you know, we'll see what comes along later with the reclamation of the bricks.
Would you say that some of these sections of Grant Street, because they're a backside almost to some of the properties that front on the western side of Newcastle, that they get heavier truck traffic, or is that not necessarily so?
There's a good bit of truck traffic,
Deliveries
delivery
and, yeah.
vehicles on those streets. You know, I don't know if I'd say it's more than Newcastle, or, you know, have to sit out there one day and kind of watch it, I guess. But you're right, there are a lot of deliveries there, and what is it, Richmond on the other side, kind of delivering to the backside of those apartments. There's a lot of utility cuts in those bricks. You know, the bricks that are there now are not uniform. If you go out there and look, there's just a lot of, it's kind of a hodgepodge. They've been cut and put back with different materials and that kind of thing. So it's, you know, it's, but we just felt like we need to get a surface on there and improve those surface, especially with the increased traffic and pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic in the area. So it's kind of our thoughts.
How
on it.
much money are we talking about to resurface what some people would like to be able to see and to save?
I don't remember that number off the top of my head. I should have
I should
pulled
have
that
too,
out.
but I didn't.
Yeah, I should have anticipated that question a little better, but I can find that out and let you know
I
that.
think we need to do that. I really do, before I say that I want to go ahead with this thing, because listen, I was, some of the stuff that's been done, I was a critic of, I really was. But I'm seeing the value now in spending the money and holding on to our historical past in ways that I couldn't envision. I'm telling you, I think a lot of where we are today is that people are seeing that we're digging a little deeper, and that we've got a lot of concern before we go in and do things. So I would really appreciate you bringing that back to us. So I don't know if we need to hold this up, but at least.
I guess that was going to be my next question. Could we go ahead and approve the contract with the, I guess, the caveat that we'll investigate that, and if we decide to not resurface Grant Street, I'll work with Ms. McDuffie and we'll adjust the scope accordingly.
So where would you start with this project? You wouldn't start down here in the south end, would you?
I think you would. I think you'd start on the two areas that have already been built.
No, I mean, if you're gonna hold off.
He means the other.
I mean, the
streets.
overall project.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think that'd be a conversation with the contractor and see how they kind of.
I notice there's a lot in here about staging. There's a bunch of verbiage in there, and we're not providing staging in here, so, or an area for staging.
That's typically on the contractor in these contracts.
I would really like to see us explore that a little bit further. Even if we can't do it today, I don't know what the typical lifespan of a couple of inches of asphalt are on top of bricks, but you know, if we're able to get splossed, maybe it's not going to be on this splost, but on a future splost, because, you know, to me, when that was uncovered, it was like, wow, it's almost like the yellow brick road in a sense. It's, you know, there's very few communities that still have that, unless you pull up a whole roadbed and start from scratch, which I don't, you know, maybe that's what you have to do. Or we at least prioritize and look at certain blocks that have more foot traffic on them that would be aesthetically, from a tourism heritage standpoint, more impactful. I just think it's worth studying, taking a look at, knowing what those costs are, and, you know, maintenance and that kind of thing.
And we are exploring other options, whether there's some, I mean, based on the volume of bricks that are there, if we can do possible crosswalks or some side paving or something like that with the bricks, and then fill it in with the asphalt, and seeing how, you know, those cost and what restoration can be made. So we are looking at all those options. We, you know, kind of got our fillers out. We've contacted other cities who have done that type of brickwork. It's just difficult to, you know, do that here. We found out that because of our climate, it's harder for us to take off asphalt in areas where it gets colder. The asphalt, they can, you know, it gets cold and they can chip it away pretty easily. But here it's pretty hot, so it doesn't work that way. So we've looked at a lot of different areas. I mean, we didn't necessarily, you know, just say we're going to resurface it. We did take into account, and we'll continue to take into account ways, or if there's a way for us to restore
Okay, thank you.
economically.
Right, sure, I understand.
Well, you know, we look at jobs lots of times, and like I say, lots of stuff has been done down here that I thought you could pour some concrete over, and I was wrong. And I don't mind saying I was wrong. So I think this is well worth our time to see what we can do here to hold on to our historical features.
So holding on to our historical features, how does that impact the other streets that need to be done and what we were talking about in this contract?
I think we could go forward with this contract without including Grant Street in the scope of work. And I don't,
Grant Street is the main topic of historical preservation, right?
Right.
Okay, but that should not negate or hinder or hold us up from continuing with the other needed.
right, well, yeah, we could go right ahead with those. I don't see any reason why not.
Anybody's asking for that at all. They just want consideration here.
Yeah, and we really want to support the, you know, development downtown and all of the business restoration. But Grant Street is in, you know, very deplorable condition. So we definitely want to do something with it to, you know, kind of support all the revitalization.
I'm totally game for it, but making sure that we're still moving forward, but making sure that we do the preservation that we, as much of it as we possibly can.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd like to say too, that this is really, Garrow's gone back and given us a history of the cost for paving like L Street, Magnolia Park. And if you consider that WTI crude is $110 a barrel today, it wasn't that when we were doing all these other things. So we are really and truly getting a good price today with the amount of inflation we've got here. But I still want us to try to spend our money with local companies if we can do it, and we're going out of town with this bid. So it's just hard for me to understand why we can't get local people in here to spend our money with, but I see the numbers and there's justification to do what we're doing. There's no question about it, but I really, really want us to work on that. I really do. And
And Garo, is it that at the very top for the road, the ARPA funds, the sections of Grant Street that are mentioned? We know that each of those have brick or.
We know that the two southern ones do. Number one from F to Gloucester, we're not certain. It was not milled. Well, you would, I would assume it does, but
Okay,
it hasn't been milled yet.
okay.
I can tell you this from the old days, from you cross Gloucester Street over Newcastle, headed to Bay Street. That was all pavers, every bit of it. Where those old oak trees, the pictures that you see of those oak trees, that was all the brick, probably Augusta brick, I would guess. Now, what I'm not sure is I'm not sure when they started paving, if they left any of that stuff down. I don't have an inkling. But it was
I don't
all
know
the
about
way to
that
Bay
area.
Street. It was a paver. It was a brick at one time. Can we check on that?
We can see,
Yeah.
try to determine what's
Yeah,
there.
let's see what's there.
You're talking about it, the entrance to Mary Ross Park there, that.
Not that far. I don't,
Okay.
I'm just talking,
You say
once you
all
get,
across
once you
Newcastle,
across, once you.
between Newcastle and Bay.
Right,
Okay.
right, yeah.
All right.
That was the Trailway bus station where the east corner of the library is. And there was a restaurant there called the Savoy Restaurant. It was right there on the corner. And I know that I can remember vividly the old bricks being there.
I'll see what,
Way back.
Well, I'm happy to say I'm still here to do it, so hold on to me, all right? Don't turn me loose. Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gary.
yes, sir.
Okay, so what do we need to do here?
I mean, could we approve this kind of with the understanding that we'll investigate Grant Street some more and kind of remove it from the scope until we learn more? Is it?
I don't want to mess up the contractor and the bid and everything. Yeah,
I think it'd be important to approve to keep this project on track. If we investigate and realize that Grant Street should be removed or there's something we can do, I think we can, bring forth a change order or something along those lines.
We'll work with the contractor. to
Right,
make that
after the
adjustment
fact.
at
Because I
that
think
time.
they're ready to kind of go on the bulk of what's going on here.
Right. I'd hate to lose any window that they may have of getting this done.
So fiscally, cost, what would be the impact on the cost? If Grant Street has some preservation that needs to be done, what's is there a projected increase? Is there a projected decrease? What would we, because we're at 1.2 now, because Grant Street is included in this project, as you have indicated here. But now there may be some changes. Is there going to be a change in cost up or down?
I think that depends on what the cost of the Grant Street rehab is. If it's, I don't know, $2 million and we have to set aside a separate project to do it, maybe we remove it from here and do the rest of these streets and this contract is reduced. Or we add other streets around town that do need and we stay paid at $1.2 million. If we determine that Grant Street can be rehabbed manageably at a manageable cost, maybe we increase the cost of this contract and include it in this. I don't know. We just need to, there's a lot of options there, I guess, and we
We
won't
got
know.
plenty of
until we-
roads that need paving.
it sounds,
Right, we can add to this list
Yeah.
without running out of streets, no doubt.
well, I was gonna say, we're talking about 1,500 feet length. If
Yes,
you look
ma'am.
at those Grant 1, 2, and 3. So if we could substitute something, just to give us more
I mean,
time.
Lanier Boulevard, there's 1,500
Yeah.
feet of Lanier Boulevard needs paving.
Sure,
So-
I tell you what, because every time, you fill in the holes, next week I come back at the cliff, same holes are there again.
It's tough to, that temporary patch is hard to work with, but yeah, so I mean, like you say, there's no shortage of streets that need work. So if we remove Grant, it won't be any problem finding
Plenty
something to
of,
do.
we've got a list.
We do.
Got a
Yeah,
list.
I think I'd be more in favor of that.
Okay.
At least that doesn't mess up all the work that, you know, you, the contractor, everybody's figured on. And if we could just swap out 1,500 feet wherever it makes sense to.
We'll do that. And that stay at our $1.2 million cost. Sure.
That's what I was trying to get to.
And I mean, if Lanier Boulevard, I don't know which part of it, but if we've got the whole intersection project and some of that road work.
Some of that could get done with the intersection.
Yeah, that
Right.
makes
but-
sense.
So,
You know,
Okay.
probably when we go to Lanier Boulevard, we need to see if we can't raise some of that road up as much as we can. That really needs to be a consideration. It really does.
I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but we're looking at a grant project to try
All
to
right.
investigate that. but
All right.
just-
I
We
hate,
do
I
have
hate,
that on the
to- I hate
radar.
to mention this, but we had Mansfield Street a couple of years ago, and I'm gonna tell you what, this is just about as extensive amount of reading I've ever done on one of our projects. It is really
Mhm.
something. I want to be sure that we have all these neighborhoods covered, and we don't leave too much, no pun intended, uncovered out there. There's a lot here. There's a whole bunch, and there's about $143,000 in not staging, but in the
Mobilization.
Yeah,
And that,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And that's-
I mean, a large part of this is and then traffic control.
mhm.
Traffic control is just,
That's large on a project like this because they can't set up at one location and work behind that traffic control. It has to move with them. So, that adds a lot to a project like this.
and we got mailboxes involved, we got driveways involved.
Driveway, yes, sir. Hopefully, we won't have to relocate any mailboxes, but the right driveways and making sure coordinating with residents and getting them in and out. And
And I'm assuming that we're gonna post signs in advance of the road work, letting people know in the neighborhood or people that travel those
typically,
routes.
we have the contract to go door to door
Yeah.
a day ahead, knocking on doors and making contact and letting people know that they're coming and
Okay.
and the work will be starting.
Okay. Well, if we're ready for a motion, I'll make a motion. Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with East Coast Asphalt for resurfacing of various streets within the city as presented, with the exception of pulling out Grant Street Project 1, 2, and 3, encompassing 1,500 feet length and substituting it for another area of the city of equal measurement
Yes. Second,
or close.
I hold my second.
I think it would have been cleaner to approve it as is and then allow us to bring it back through a change order if we need to address Grant Street. I think that would be the
You're
more
not gonna
appropriate.
Slam us with change order charges?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to have to get an idea of, I mean, if it's possible to come within the scope of what is budgeted, then we might be able to do a change order and have Grant Street repaved as a part of this. Because I don't think, I might be speaking on turn, but I don't think that are we prepared to reallocate not on this contract, the Grant Street funding to something else? So that's what it.
This amount of money?
Right. I think it would have to be a change order because I think the bid encompasses Grant Street
Okay,
repaving. So to remove it, I think it's going to require us to do a change order no matter what.
From the numbers I've seen, I feel like the Grant Street rehab is going to be significantly more expensive than this number is here, which could take us into a whole different project. If that,
Okay, so I rescind my motion,
Is it-
or do we need
Ma'am,
to, it just gone?
What I guess the question I'm trying to figure out is what are we being asked to go ahead and improve this contract with Grant Street included as is? And that gives Director Albertson the openness to go back and have a conversation with those who are inside the contract to discuss other options. But if we don't approve this right now, you have to go back and renegotiate an entire contract. Am I hearing that? Because if we take the street out, it's a completely different contract.
That's
You can't-
right. That's my concern.
So if we approve it as is, we just, with the understanding that we'll remove that and
let the
substitute
contract-
another
Right.
length of pavement.
Yep.
So, for the same value.
And so what I'm hearing is that we're right now, what stands before us is either to postpone this vote, which would give Director Albertson time to go back and renegotiate a whole contract, but it would hold up all of the other projects, or move forward with the contract as is, but with the caveat that allows him to negotiate what we do with that. street.
Right. And I think so in doing it through a change order, because if he's able to go back and talk to them and we are able to, whatever comes out of those discussions as to the rehabilitation of Grant Street, we could bring a change order back to either maybe slightly increase the price to address the historical significance of Grant Street while also repaving it, or if it does require it to become its own separate project, I think Garrow could go ahead and prepare using what was for Grant Street, a change order and addressing it with Georgia Asphalt producers at that time. And then we'll roll that into the contract as it is.
Okay, so because there's already language in there about change orders, we don't really need to state anything, correct?
No, I mean, we've done them,
Yeah.
we've addressed stuff like this
Yeah.
before through the change order process.
All right, then I will change my motion and just make a motion that we approve the contract with East Coast Asphalt for asphalt resurfacing of various streets within the city as presented.
Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
For the second, it's back on the board now.
Yes.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Director Albertson.
Thank you.
We will now move on to consider approval of mutual aid intergovernmental agreement between City of Brunswick Police Department and Glenn County Police Department. Chief Jones.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
Just to give you a little background about, probably last November, I spoke with Ms. McDuffie about some ideas on retention and recruiting for the department to help us keep officers and attract new officers. Of course, one of those was a sign-on bonus. And as part of that, a consideration was to look forward to, if we were to lose at that time 4 more officers, we would not have enough personnel to provide street coverage on our patrol shifts. So we discussed those ideas, and to jump forward a little bit, January of this year, I spoke with Ms. McDuffie again and said, ma'am, it's time to look at the idea of adding some supplemental coverage for our patrol shifts. I'd already pulled everyone I could, supplemental officers, and put them back in patrol. Our crime suppression unit, our drug squad, some of our traffic enforcement officers. So we were to the point, if we lost 2 more officers, we would not be able to provide coverage on patrol. And the idea that I floated was that we enter into a contract or talks with the county to see if they could provide supplemental officers for our patrol shifts. And the reason is we're supposed to have 7 officers per patrol shift. And since the first of the year, we've been at 4 officers per patrol shift. And I've worked the streets. We cannot go below 4 patrol officers per shift because it's just not safe. We average 104 calls per service a day. And if we go below 4, we are not able to handle the call volume. Officers do not have backup on the streets, and it's just not safe. So that was my standard set. We can't go below 4. So at that time, Ms. McDuffie suggested that I contact the county police chief. So I talked with him, and we set up a informal meeting with the county police chief, the county manager, the city attorney and county attorney, and myself included, and Ms. McDuffie. And so we discussed the situation with them. County police chief stated that he thought that they could supply the supplemental officers as needed on a piecemeal basis per shift, pretty much one officer at that time, as we had fallen below the level that we could provide 4 officers per shift. And so we discussed it and came up with some boundaries and ground rules and ideas of what we thought this MOU should look like. So after a couple of more meetings with them, we do have the intergovernmental agreement with Glenn County and the city of Brunswick now, and I think you've hopefully had a chance to review that. The county finally did come up with a number that they thought was reasonable for reimbursing for the use of their officer vehicles, gas, and equipment. And actually, before we even got that number, the number that I just tried to put together and gave Ms. McDuffie, my estimate was between 30 and 35 an hour. So theirs, the basic is 37 per hour. So that's pretty much in line with what I thought it should be anyway. And the county has already been providing some assistance without compensation. They were able to, last weekend, they sent an officer down Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evening to help us out, to help with coverage. I've been working patrol shifts at night. Major has helped out. But we're also doing our day shift duties too. So we need some help. And so that's why we are here tonight, for you to consider this MOU.
Thank you, Chief Jones. We will open it up for questions.
I had a comment on page 3 under Article 5, request for services. In reading through this, it seems as though it would make sense that as you read maybe 2 more sentences down, it says, upon receiving such requests, the county police chief shall in consultation with the county manager ensure such services are available to the city and notify the city as soon as possible. If you go up to the top of that same paragraph, it says, in the event the city is in need of the police services from the county as defined in Article 6 of this agreement, the city police chief or designee will make the request and identify the number of officers. And it seems to me that there should be some wording that says, in consultation with the city manager will make a request to the county. Does that make sense? That just,
Well, the reason, and we talked about that or discussed how those requests would be made,
yeah,
but generally it's based on the shortage, and it's based on, you know, the scheduling. So the person, the chief, the division head at the time, if they are short that person, they need to be able to make that request. And that's why we didn't put it in consultation in that. We are already understanding that if they get to that level, then they have the authority to
ring the
make
bell.
that.
And- Okay. And then I had another question, only because I don't know acronyms. What is ORI? On page 5, the 3rd line down, it talks about establishment of a unique ORI, but I don't know what an ORI is. It defines what GCIC is, Georgia Crime Information Center, but then I looked, I couldn't find ORI written anywhere else in the,
ORI, ma'am, I'm having trouble finding it on here, but ORI is the originating agency. That's basically our assigned number that we have to have through GC and CIC, basically GBI through the state. It's our agency number.
okay. It's at the very top of page 5. It's the third line down.
I know where it is. We've already established one. I mean, the city already has this is kind of boilerplate, but the city has already established the appropriate user agreements with GCIC. We already have, the city police department and municipal court both already have ORIs that we utilize to do background checks and submit reports and all of that. So the city's already in compliance with this paragraph, but it's in there as a necessity, a legal necessity.
So the parties that need to know what that is.
Yes, ma'am, we already have them.
They know where it.
Okay. And then the only other, and this is just more probably factual housekeeping, but at the bottom of page 5, where they list the contact for the city, they have City Hall Pate Building. There is no City Hall Pate Building. So,
That was supposed to be changed. We did see that in there.
okay.
It was just where the two columns split. That should be City Hall, and Pate Building should be on the other side under.
Oh, okay.
So the
I
columns
gotcha.
got a little mixed up there, but we'll make that change.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Questions?
But this works both ways, correct? Even though it constantly talks about the city in need of county officers, but this is mutual. So if the county needed the same assistance from the city, all of this would apply.
We already have a standard MOU with the county, ma'am. So if it's
Okay.
something like during a hurricane or a mass shooting or something like that, we can assist each other already.
Okay,
But there would be a difference in this MOU because this strictly is what the county would charge the city.
okay,
The actual numbers may be a little different if it was the other way around.
okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So this agreement is a 6-month agreement.
Sorry, with the county attorney's office, it actually would go into effect. The effective date would be the date that it's signed into place, but it does have a termination date of December 31st of this year. So it's very close to 6 months. I originally anticipated 6 months, but it just felt easier. We had December 31st as the cutoff date. And then the effective date would be tomorrow night. The county's taking it up for consideration. So tomorrow's the 20th.
Mhm. 20,
19th.
19.
Sorry.
So, and I mean, I'm in agreement with you, but I just have these questions. In this time frame, it allots for the filling of necessary positions. I know that we have people or candidates that's in the academy, but they're not going to be ready to hit the streets for how long they come out of the academy. I'm just trying to see how this is going to leverage out.
Yes, ma'am. We had,
the current workforce.
we had 5 in the academy. Monday, 2 of them failed firearms. So they were no longer in the academy. They were terminated. We have 3 left in the academy right now. We have 2 already hired that are ready to go to the next academy, which starts July the 5th. But to give you a timeline from the date of hire, say we hire a new uncertified officer today, it's a minimum of 7 months of training before they can answer a call on their own. That's a minimum. So right now, the 3 that are in the academy, they will graduate the end of June. Then they will have 3 more months of field training officer with the FTO on the street. And if everything goes perfect and the stars align, then they will be able to answer a call on their own. So,
Next year.
no, ma'am, that'll be this year
Oh, that'd be
for
this
the
year.
3 in now. Yes, ma'am.
Let's say 7 months. That was gonna be my next question. That was gonna be my next question. Where are we with that effort? With finding, I mean, I will know retired, are there any retired officers who can still, their gun belts still good, they can still run, are there any of those persons that, are available I just asked a question.
Yes, ma'am. We think on the same lines. I've already talked to quite a few and none have agreed to come back yet, but we did actually hire one certified officer. But after a week, she turned in her resignation and quit. That was 2 weeks ago.
How about some from other areas? Have you talked to any other areas?
Yes, ma'am. We're trying. There's one now that used to work for us that she works at Kingsland now. And we've already spoken to her about possibly coming back. So working on it. Yes, ma'am.
Call Larry Bruce, Kevin.
You know, well, Camden offers a $7,000 sign-on bonus for certified officers.
I was about to ask that. Do we have something somewhere we can?
It's 2,500 now. Yes, ma'am. That was approved by y'all last month.
Even for, those that are already certified?
Yes, that's for certified. Yes, ma'am.
I was just trying to see how we can kind of temporarily sweep the pot and, use them like a detail or something.
Yeah.
In the government, we call it a detail, so we need people for a short time frame. Temporarily, it's a detail. They don't give us a signing bonus or nothing, but it gives you opportunity to increase your skills, but.
Yes, ma'am.
Really quickly, the only question I had is, you said, what was the amount per hour that we were paying, that we're gonna agree to pay them?
For the standard officer, sir, give me just a second. Let me find it. I've got it.
It was $37 per hour for a standard and 42 for overtime.
And what do we pay our officers?
Say that again.
What does that what is that same number for BPD?
Well, that includes the benefits and use of vehicle and use of equipment. So that's not necessarily the
That's not a
hourly rate that they're paying their person. It's our reimbursement.
is what we pay to use them for an hour.
Right.
Got you. Thank you.
Our certified officer per hour serves 2141. That's starting brand new. The county's starting salary is roughly $2,100 more a year than ours is for new certified.
When you say 2141, that's per hour? Is that what
Yes,
you-
sir. 2141 per hour is 47,872 a year.
Perfect. Thank you. I do not have any additional questions outside of, I guess, one more. We got these people coming through, God willing, they make it through. We come to the end of this agreement in December. If we still need additional coverage, what happens then?
Extend this.
Originally, there was a clause in this agreement for renewal. Has that been taken out, Brian, or?
No, it has not.
Okay.
It could renew for an additional succeeding 3-month period. So again, we're going with the mentality that we're hoping that this is temporary, and as we are able to staff, we can roll this off, but it does allow for succeeding 3-month renewals.
And Chief, looking at it, we got the 3 coming out. And I think when you and I talked, there was 2 kind of upstairs that were moving down into patrol, right?
Yes, sir. They just started last week
Okay.
in-field training.
Okay. And
Yes.
so their glide path or their timeline, how long before they're by themselves? Is that the
3 months.
3 months? So
Yes,
the
sir.
2 who came from downstairs, that's 3 months. Then the ones, you said we got 3 left in
The academy.
the academy.
Yes.
And so the 3 who are left in the academy, what's their timeline before they would be able to be on the streets?
They graduate at the end of June, so the 1st of October, if
1st of
everything
October.
goes well, they would be certified to answer calls on their own.
And at that point, so that leaves us in October going into December. At that point, would you feel comfortable enough that we will be naturally coming to that end of that agreement with that personnel rolling in?
Well, not necessarily, sir. There's already 2 officers that are still with us right now. One has a potential start date with the county police in the middle of June. Another one has a start date with the school police middle of July, 2nd week in July. So that's two that I know are already going. And there's a third officer that has an application in with the county police right now, and he's in the process.
So we have 5 potential minus 3 on the way out the door.
Yes, ma'am.
So we back down to 2.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's been that way a long, long time. A long time.
And just to let you know, the 4 patrol officers per shift, that is the minimum. That's with perfect world. That means that nobody's out sick, nobody goes to school, nobody takes vacation. And we're already below that level on one shift. We're at 3 on one shift right now.
So, and how many shifts are
There are 4 patrol shifts.
4 shifts?
Yes, ma'am. We have 36 sworn officers right now. 3 are out on family medical leave.
Outside of we did the pay raise, then we did the stipend, and then we also did the signing bonus. What's the vision for recruiting? What's the vision for, the way I look at it is, I am clear that, BPD may be an entry point for people into law enforcement. And I'm okay with that being the case. I want to make it the best experience possible for them. But what is knowing that this will be kind of our ball field that we're playing on, what is the recruiting method to get people into the roles?
We do pretty good on getting applicants. Of course, after you whittle that down with the folks that meet the requirements. But right now, Marcia Myers, she's actually downstairs. I think there's 5 or 6 that she's working on right now to hopefully go to the July Academy. But we go to the military bases. They have what they call out days. When there's a large group planning on getting out of the military, we go to Hunter Army Airfield. We go to Kings Bay. Is it Cecil Field in Jacksonville? I think that one too. So we go to, that's where we try to recruit. I mean, those are good, solid folks that already have similar training. But we also recruit here. I mean, I want folks from Brunswick because they know, they grew up here. They went to school with the people. They know who to look for, where to look for, bad guys, victims, missing people, whatever.
They know the streets.
They know the streets. They already know this area. That's who we want. There was a gentleman, I got a Subway sandwich Monday night when I was working night shift. Young man, 20 years old. He talked to me a little bit. He told me that he had worked landscaping job that day and now he's working Subway that night. I said, you ever thought about being a police officer? I gave him my card. I'm hoping he'll contact me. Yeah.
That's recruiting. It's just the fact that we have got to set aside some things that perhaps we think we need and get some things that we absolutely cannot do without, and that's sworn police officers. And the only way we're going to do it in this environment is to be competitive in every single discipline that we've got to answer to, every single one. So I see it as it's incumbent upon us to start looking to see what we can do without here to go wherever we need to go to get ourselves safe and secure in a staff police force. And I would say a lot of that is in the hands of our city manager, along with our police chief and our human resources. And that's why I was asking about human resources too, to be sure that we've got what we need there. Knowing that this has got to be dealt with. It's got to.
On an average, Chief, what's an average number of applicants that actually apply on an annual basis? What's an average number of applicants that actually apply for BPD on an average basis? And out of that average number that apply annually, how many actually come through or become a part of the department?
This is a rough estimate, ma'am, just off the top of my head. My guess would be 40 plus applicants a year. And the number that we actually get through, again, a rough estimate would be probably 9 or 10.
Woo!
And we are working to, bring together the police department, command staff, HR, and myself, and try and widen the net. I know the chief says, and we can widen that net, not by going further out from where Brunswick is, but widen the net in terms of the people who are approached, such as the chief was saying, people who are steady workers. In my opinion, anyone who is honest and want to serve their community is, someone trainable, and look to see where are some pockets that we may not have looked at before. So we're kind of putting some people around the table and hopefully drumming up more ideas of how we can go out and where we can go out to recruit other agencies as well.
Wonderful. Do we have any more questions? Here and now, we'll open it for a motion.
I make a motion that we move forward with the contract between the City of Brunswick Police Department and Glynn County Police Department as presented.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. With that, we will move on to consider approval of memorandum of understanding between Coastal Pines Technical College and City of Brunswick Police Department.
Thank you, sir. This MOU is at the request of the Chief Ethan Johnson with the Coastal Pines Technical College. They are a group. They have ones, I think, in Waycross. I know there's one, of course, here in Brunswick off of Airport Road. And this is to benefit them, the technical college. They have one full-time police officer on campus out there. We have done over the last several years training that they have sponsored with them as far as a first responder event, a mass shooting, basically is the training that we have. And that encompasses, of course, their police officer, the county police, our department, EMS, fire, just as a training exercise, so everyone can get familiar with how to respond, how to work better, things we can learn from that over the last several years. And so request is from them, and this is strictly a assistance if needed for an event like that. So if they call and say, hey, we've got somebody on campus with a gun, Brunswick Police can respond and help out. Our SWAT team in particular, and whatever other assistance we could give, because they just don't have the manpower with one person on campus to deal with that.
Are they looking to do the exact same agreement with the county as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's, from my understanding, it's already been presented to them. I'm not sure if it's been approved by them, but it was presented.
So I was wondering why the city and why not the county, but they need both in the event that. it's
Yes,
something-
ma'am.
Okay.
Any questions?
I'm just kind of puzzled that we only have one. I'm puzzled and I'm scared.
Well, they do employ part-time, a couple of the SROs, the school resource officers out there, but they only have one full-time officer. And the chief, he is responsible for both campuses, the one in Waycross and the one here. So he's back and forth, but
So is that like the ratio per student body or something?
I couldn't tell you, ma'am. I'm not sure.
So it's a little rough for everybody.
Got to help out. I'll make a motion to approve this agreement between Coastal Pines Tech and the Brunswick Police Department.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Chief Jones.
Thank you.
Chief.
We'll now,
Keep doing what you're doing, Chief. Keep on pushing.
there it is. We'll now consider approval of Main Street Memorandum of Understanding, and Director Hill.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
So it is that time of year again for the memorandum of understanding between the City of Brunswick, the Brunswick Downtown Development Authority, and the Department of Community Affairs. And this has to do with the city's Main Street program. These memorandums of understanding have been going on for a while. This one is a little bit different. It's the same as the ones we've had in the past, but it is different from a lot of cities in that we have some items at the end of it about the Georgia Exceptional Main Street. So this memorandum outlines what the city agrees to do, the DDA agrees to do, and Department of Community Affairs. And we are in compliance with everything as we have been since 1986. So unless you have any questions, I know the Downtown Development Authority Chairman has signed it already. It was approved by the board at our meeting last week. And I think the mayor's probably gotten an email already about it and incessant reminders that it needs to be signed.
I have a question, Matthew, on the, I don't know if the pages are numbered, but it's the 2021 Community Impact Report.
Yes, I've had no end of trouble with that. When I was getting ready to come up, I noticed the one I had in my packet was completely blank. So.
Well, this one's filled in, but.
And there
my
is
que-
an error.
My question is, it states the total number of new housing units at 3. Can you define housing units? Does that mean a house?
Those are
Or is that
housing
like
units.
A whole building that has several residential.
It could be an apartment, a building that has numerous apartments. This is the former Parker Kaufman building on Gloucester Street next to City Hall.
Mhm.
At the end of December last year, that was the only residential one that was completed. So this year we'll see a bunch come up with the Leotis building and the Liberty building.
Why wouldn't you call it projects instead of units?
Well, a
To me, it
project
just
then it
sounds
would
like
be,
One.
the project would be, you call it one project, but there could be 10 units in it. So this way you get the number of actual residential units
So is that number correct? 3?
that are new
that are
last
new?
year
Okay,
that completed and got their COA.
okay.
So those were the 3 in the Parker
Jay
Kaufman building.
Jenkins did, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the total investment in building improvements should be 8,436,000.
Okay.
Not
That
1
makes
million.
more sense too.
Yeah,
So we should see these numbers.
they're in
Go
the
up.
report that you got last month
Yeah.
from me or the month before. And I have asked them about that and why this is so problematic.
Any additional questions? Hearing none. Oh,
I got a question. Matthew, what is going on with the lady across from the fire department?
She is working through trying to work through a punch list with her contractor.
Boy, how long has that been going on?
A while.
Yeah.
A long time.
You know, and I'm looking here at this picture that you've given to us in your handout with the farmer's market, and I still want to see us have a really, really super whiz bang farmer's market here.
We are getting
in
more
downtown Brunswick.
vendors more produce vendors. In fact, we're going to have to start pushing out some of the non-produce people because we're getting more produce vendors there, especially this time of year.
I still
Yes.
think it would be well worth our time to go after the Georgia products that the state agricultural commissioner is, Gary Black, is pushing the Georgia grown.
made.
We are it is a Georgia grown market.
But why can't we get more help from the agricultural commissioner? Do you know?
Well, they don't have a whole
He
lot
doesn't
of,
have a farm.
No, Gary Black is the agricultural commissioner, and he's got a whole army of people that are there to promote Georgia grown. I mean, that's what they're doing is promotion.
Mhm.
If we'd had the work going on back during COVID, there's no telling where we would be right now with a farmer's market. That's my point. And we need to push all that we can to get the people down here, the resources. We talk about food deserts all over the place. Well, we got one down here. Let's continue to beef up this thing and expand our market.
We are working on it and trying to get more vendors.
Thank you.
Thank you. That you all have come and actually given like a re-envisioning of the farmer's market.
From Waycross, from the Wade Green Market.
Wasn't Brandy.
Is her name Abigail or Abby? No. But you had, because you came to get the presentation, she came to get the presentation. And it was like a revisioning of the farmer's market and direction that you all are going to be exploring and taking it in.
Yeah, and we are still talking with them. We could probably increase the number of vendors that would be there twice a month. It could be full of produce vendors, but a number of the produce vendors we have existing would have to go. They could not participate on those days because they don't grow locally. And the growers, the Georgia Grown certified growers, do not want to be at a market with people who get their produce off a truck or from a state farmers market because they can't compete price wise. So we have that balance of trying to get new growers, but keep our ones that have been there for a long time.
So what's the percentage of the actual farmers and the produce versus other vendors? What's the percentage that makes up the actual?
Right now, it's about 60% other and 40 produce or plant related or food related. But like I said, we're starting to get more inquiries for produce and food related. So we'll have to start pushing out some of the craft and resellers.
You know, some of the craft people could set up temporary around the perimeter.
Mhm.
We don't have to do away with them. I mean.
No, they can be moved out of the market building itself.
Yeah.
And have something like from the market straight to the food truck or something. I can't think of it. Something like, like you're getting you're purchasing your produce from there. You got a food truck that's immediately there that's going to be using those.
The produce that's there.
Yes. So it's like from the market to the truck or from whatever you want to call it. And have them doing, just have cook-offs or something, that kind of galvanizes, the other producers of homegrown that want to come because they know at least they've got an immediate customer, that's going to take it,
Mhm.
whatever amount from them that they.
Create some competition.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good.
We have had some cooking demonstrations. We haven't had a food truck using the produce there. That's,
So they're advertising, I got this from so-and-so.
Mhm.
Any additional questions?
I appreciate all this. This all looks real good and we're hitting a pretty good lick in my opinion. Let's keep it up.
we are, and we're starting to see more interest in Norwich Street. And we've been working with the city manager on some improvements to that area to try to help boost that area up.
That's wonderful.
All we had to do was do away with that monthly meeting we had out on Norwich Street and then start picking up.
Well, it's time to start that up again.
I'm ready for it, buddy. I agree.
We'll now entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Main Street Memorandum of Understanding as presented.
Hearing the first, do I have a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes.
All right.
Thank you, Director Hill.
Mayor, if you would electronically sign that, then I will, and then we'll get a copy to the city clerk.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Matthew.
We will now move on to consider approval of renewal of lease between the City of Brunswick and Rebuilding Together of Glenn County, Georgia Incorporated. City Manager McDuffie.
Thank you. This lease, the current lease was put in place March of 2017. It was for a 5-year term for the use of the premises located at 2129 Albany Street. The current lease also allows for the mutual option to renew the lease for 2 additional 5-year terms. Rebuilding Together of Glenn County has requested to renew the lease for a 5-year term. And that's basically with the same terms of the current lease. And we are putting forth that request for renewal.
Appreciate that, City Manager McDuffie. I see Commissioner Booker's in the house, so I want to thank you for first off coming to the meeting, sitting through it and being here with us. And so we appreciate you, and I'm sure if there's any additional questions, we're glad to have you be a part of this discussion as well. With that, we will open up the floor for questions.
I don't really have a question, I just have a statement. Because I've been privy to be a part of some of the efforts that Rebuild Together has engaged in. And I've had an opportunity to participate on some of the projects, and I've had the opportunity to just kind of see from the ground the impact that we're having in the community. And only because of COVID for the last couple of years, they've not had the opportunity to employ the efforts of the other larger organizations that they usually bring in for volunteering to have even more of a larger impact on the community. So of course, I am definitely in favor of the renewal, because I've seen and I've participated. I've not just sat and looked, but I've actually participated, and I know for sure the impact that this organization is making on this community, and some of the things that the city is not able to do for whatever reason. Rebuild Together has stepped in to partner with or to be a part of the efforts that's definitely needed here for the rehabilitation of housing for those in need, with the large group being the veterans.
Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem. Any additional questions or
Yeah,
comments?
I'd just like to ask, there is no use the city has for that building, Regina?
There's no use that I can give you at this time. It's a new property, so, no.
And the police department has no need for that building? It's a pretty red zone we've got over there. Is that not a fact? The fire station on Albany Street.
I don't have that power footage. We already have 3 precincts that are barely used like it is, plus our police station.
Just want to check and be sure. Is our fire truck safe?
It's still sitting, huh?
Well, I would just love to see that fire truck get out of there, and I would love to see the fire truck reconditioned by the city commission. I really would. And if we have no use. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The company that made it still exists, from my understanding.
Yes.
Came to check our sprinkler system. He looked at it and said, yeah, this company, I guess it's some kind of history buff. He said they still are around. So it's certainly been.
I think we just need to get together and get it done, is what I think. I really do.
As soon as we get enough police on force.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the renewal of the lease between the City of Brunswick and Rebuilding Together of Glenn County, Georgia, Inc.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
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 All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Booker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebuild Together.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to city attorney's items. Consider adoption of ordinance number 1074, short-term rental.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What you have before you is the short-term rental ordinance that we've sort of exhaustively gone over for the past year in a good way to try to make sure that we're, I think, implementing the best ordinance that can serve the city. Out of the last commission meeting, all that's been changed is we did put lead time in so that people will be allowed to begin the process of submitting applications prior to December 31st and can obtain an accommodation tax certificate prior to December 31st, which would then become effective for the next year, January 1, 2023. I have also talked with John Hunter, of course, about sitting back down with some of these groups and Mr. Kitts about sitting back down with the vendor for the software that the county's been using. So I think, and of course, there's no real reason to have serious talks with them until ordinance is on the books. But with it being mid-May, I think an approval tonight would give us plenty of time to get something in place by October, which would then open up and allow for people to start hopefully submitting applications in the time frame that we discussed between October and December 31st, so that we hope to have those properties that are doing short-term rentals in the city having valid accommodation tax certificates January 1, 2023. And I believe the city clerk has advertised and we have not received comments. That's my understanding. So it is for your approval tonight.
Do we have any questions for City Attorney Corey?
Just confirming that there's nothing about a cap.
There is not.
Yeah.
Not that we're not going to extinguish all
Right.
avenues of pursuing that. We're still looking into that.
Yeah.
I think it's actually going to be, last time I talked to GMA, I think it's going to be a topic at the city attorney's breakfast in July at GMA. And then I think they're going to also have a short-term rental ordinance discussion at our institute in Athens in September. So I'm assuming that a lot of people are talking about this right now and trying to figure out what the best mechanism to address these issues is without trampling private property rights.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Okay. We're progressive.
And we can enforce this thing now. We've got what we need in place to.
I mean, we will, I think we will put it on the books. The effective date is January 1st. But we will now, once this is on the books, John and I will be working pretty diligently to make sure we will have it ready to go and have an application available for people October 1.
And have the company available that is going to.
And you'll see that again. I think we'll need to bring that software
I'm sure
contract
the
back before.
contract would come
right.
before us.
Yep, through finance and then through
Yeah.
the city, to the commission.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance number 1074, short-term rentals.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor agree by the usual sign of aye.
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 All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Yay.
Good job. That was a lot of work. So
That was
Thanks
a
for
big
hanging
one.
in there.
Been a
That
long
was like
time.
a alcohol rewrite. That was
Yeah.
a long, but that's the point. We
Just
gotta-
making sure you got what you need.
That's it.
It's about a 5-month birth or so, something like that.
We will be seeing some new ordinances coming in now that that one's off the books. So,
good deal. We'll now move on to consider approval of municipal court judge service agreement.
what you have before you is this is the template. I think it was in 2017, the Municipal Court Council in the state of Georgia issued a new guidance book. So for 2018, we went through and did an audit of the municipal court in early 2018. Myself, the clerk at the time, and the current judge, who is Judge Christopher O'Donnell. He was appointed February 18th, 2015. So he's been on the bench now for 7 years. But as a part of the guidelines that were released in 2017, 2018, there was strong guidance, a basic requirement that you put your head municipal court judge under a contract of a term at least to be 2 years. So starting in 2018, A contract was drafted. It's a template based on the suggestion by the municipal court council. I think the initial term was, I don't know if it's in here, but it was from June 2018 to 2020. We renewed in 2020. We are now and then we will be renewing now for a term of June 20th, 2020 and terminating June 17th, 2024, unless earlier terminated. This is, I think, a contract that's required to be in place. Speaking as the solicitor who's in front of Judge O'Donnell every other Wednesday, I do think he does a very good job. And I do think that we've done our best in the past 2 years to keep municipal court open and running in consideration of COVID and the restrictions. And, even though we're municipal court and we're under the city's umbrella, we are still bound by, Supreme Court rulings and how to conduct court, including the masks, mandates and everything. And I think we did a very good job of trying to maintain and keep court open. We also were able to, they secured several grants. I think if you look downstairs, they have new computers. Some of the TVs in the, one of the computers in the back was through a grant from municipal court to use some of that COVID funding. So I think it's good to have uniformity, and Judge O'Donnell will then be responsible for naming 2 judge pro tems, which he's done in the past. Melissa Cruthers was one at one point. She's moved on now. She's an assistant city attorney in Charleston, South Carolina. So he'll be having to do that once this contract's put in place, if that's the will of the commission.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with the municipal court judge.
Second.
Here the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
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 All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Do we have anything for executive
I
session?
do not.
We do not. I will entertain a
I'll
motion to
make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Here in the
Second.
first, here in the first and second, all those in favor show by usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the meeting is adjourned.
Yes. I know.
We got
Our longer